Right, okay, I've been meaning to do this for quite a long time, this video. I do the odd rig bits that, basically they're rigs that I use on a constant basis. So this rig that I'm going to do is the Combi Rig. It's become one of my more favourite rigs, shall we say. I just like the movement in it, the stiffness in it, and I tend to rely on it quite a lot now. Just seem to have results no matter what I'm doing. Obviously not so much on a weedy water, I would use obviously a different rig, but I'm down at my syndicate. Not a lot of weed here, not where I'm fishing to anyway, and I'm just going to show you how I do it, the components I use. Again, all these bits that I use and how I do it, of course you can change it slightly, or you may have different ways of doing it. That's fine. This is just how I use it and how I make it. Apologies for the noise if there's any wind noise. It's quite windy down here and there's a bit of rain, so you might hear that on the brolly. But like I say, quick video, show you what I do, how I do it, and what's been catching me some of my fish. In fact, I had one about an hour ago or so, lovely linear. Again, was on this rig. And it was in the way that I'm about to show you. Although you can use this as a bottom bait rig with your bottom baits, standard bottom baits, I use this a lot with a pop-up KD style, with a little split shot, maybe a little bit of putty underneath, just to critically balance it, so it just sits on the bottom nice, but it's very light. So I'll show you what I'm using, and then I'll show you how I tie it. Right, so bits I'm using, let's start with a bait. Golden balls, pop-ups, little 14mm golden balls pop-ups. Catch me a lot of fish, especially down here. They seem to really like it. So there's the bait. Now, Deception Angling, it's a size 8, it's a curve. Again, I've got 6s, I prefer the 8, especially using a smaller bait. If I was using a bigger bait, be it a bottom bait or a bigger pop-up, I'll possibly move up to a size 6. Deadly sharp, do the job. So that's the hooks. For the fluoro section, soft ghost, 18 pound. Now it says soft. Once this is made, it's pretty sturdy. I mean, anyone that's used this, been around a long time. It's what I prefer, basically. I'm sure there's others out there that people want to use, but this is what I'm using and have been using since I've started doing this rig, basically. Again, heavy skin, as most will know, my favourite coated braid. Although I do have the Deception coated braid, which is a really good bit of braid as well. This is what I'm going to use for making this rig. I don't use this coated, obviously I'm stripping it back, so you can just buy a normal braid, a nice supple braid. It doesn't have to be coated, just that this is what I'm using. And the other bits, obviously scissors, me bait tool. Why can't I think what that is? I don't know. Mine's gone blank. Bits of old tubing. Again, I've said before, I don't use bait stops, I use tubing. I'll show you now what I do with this, but we'll get to that in a minute. So to start with, heavy skin. This is the first bit. The first bit to tie up is to get your rig and your hook sorted. Quite a nice chunk. I'm sure if I got this down perfectly, you could measure this out exactly how you want it. But literally I just cut off a nice long length, and I work it from there. What you want to do is strip all the coating off. Of course, if you've got just a standard braid or a plain braid, then you're not going to have to worry about this. So all the coating off, so all it leaves is the braid. It's fairly supple. Obviously I'm sure there's always better, there's always more supple, but this is good enough. And what I like to do first off is make the loop for my bend for my bait. I always do the loops fairly big, just so the knot will be inside the pop-up or just on the bottom of it. So it's quite a big loop, probably slightly too big for this, but never mind. Apologies if this isn't great. So it's quite a big loop there. Trim that up. Got a nice loop on the end. Next, I'm going to attach the bait I'm going to use. Onto the loop. Now, what I'll do, obviously, bait stop. There's nothing complicated about that, as you're thinking. So, cut off a little bit of tubing. You're not going to be able to see that. I can't barely see it in here either, but a little bit of tubing. But rather than just using it like that, so that's a tiny little bit, I like to cut down the length of it in half. So now you've got two bait stops. Again, I don't know how good this is coming out, but I'm sure you understand what I mean. So I'm not cutting it in half across it, but all the way down the length of the tube, the bit of tubing you've cut, only a tiny bit. What I find with that is that when you use it, where it's flatter and it's got a slight curve to it anyway from the natural, obviously the curve of the tubing itself, I turn that round, pull that down tight, and the curve will take on the shape of the boilie. Now, I like to try and keep it minimal, so it's not quite there, but literally if you can just bend that round and that will sit to the shape of the boilie, and it's literally, it just doesn't notice. So if the fish are mouthing your bait or anything, obviously you could trim it down so it's a bit neater, but they shouldn't sort of touch the bait stop and spook off it basically. So as you can see, it was slightly big, that loop. The knot is just underneath the pop-up, but that will stop it from moving anywhere. Next, you get yourself a nice sharp hook, whatever one it be. Like I say, I use a size 8 deception curve, and you're going to do your knotless knot. So through the back, and literally get it to the point where you're going to be happy that you want your bait to separate from the hook. Now don't forget, with this I'm using a pop-up, so I am going to be adding a little split shot underneath, perhaps with a little bit of putty. So I like to sometimes give it just a bit of a longer gap, just so I know it's still separation from the little split shot and the putty. So I'm happy with that. Hold it in place, then round twice, round twice, and then pull the hair out of the way, and then under the hair until, well, I do it until it kind of hits the point of the hook. So I'm happy with that. Put the hair back in place, or flip it back over, back through the eye. I'm sorry if this is all fingers in a minute. It's going to get worse, to be fair. I like to just wet that a little bit before I pull it down. Nice and tight. And then, as you can see, the hook kicks out slightly, and you've got a nice little bit of separation there between the pop-up and the hook. It looks quite long now, but it's not actually that long. Okay, so I'm happy with that. What you do want is quite a bit of the braid left over, so it's quite long now. You're going to need that. I'm hoping that's long enough, and I haven't cut myself short, but we'll see. So that's part one done. Nice and simple. Now for part two. Part two is your boom section, or your fluoro section. First job is getting it out of the casing. And again, take quite a bit, because it gives you room to manoeuvre in case if you cut it too short, you might end up finding that the rig's going to be way too short. So cut quite a length. And then basically you want to fold it over to make a loop. You're not joining it, just folding it over. And then this end here, the middle of the loop if you like, I like to squash that down, and sometimes what I'm going to do now is just bite that to make a point. Go. So all I've done is fold it over, I mean you can squeeze it down, but it kind of makes a bit more of a point at this end, just makes it slightly easier. Now it's a matter of keeping that together. Just hold on to it. We'll swap hands I think for this. So you've got your loop in your fluoro. Now this is all going to get a bit fingers and thumbs. I'm going to try my best to do it so you can see everything that's going on, but I can't promise anything. We'll see. So just hold your loop in place on the fluoro. Grab your braid with your hook on and your bait on, and just come from underneath the loop and feed the braid through the loop right down to the eye of the hook. Don't worry about where the hook's sitting. I always like to get it right up to the eye of the hook. Then what you want to do is grab the loop as best you can and the braid and hold it in place so that the hook sits there as well. Like I say, it's quite a fiddly rig this, but it's worth it, he says. Try again. Keep hold of your loop. Feed the braid up through all the way to the eye. Hold the braid and try and hold the hook and the fluoro together. So now you've got the braid sticking out one side, just like through the loop, and the loops, you can see it's held together there by my other fingers. Now with the braid, you want to go away from the hook, but around both bits of the fluoro. So you're just winding it. So, and I'll do this 5 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And once you've done that, you want to do 5 back down towards the hook, so over the top of the ones you've already done. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you want to pass the braid. I don't know how well you can see it. That's what's left of the loop with the braid running down to it. The hook's still hanging down, so the braid is coming up through the loop still, and you've got this bit of braid here. What you want to do is go the same way that the hook's going, so back down through the loop. Again, it's not always the easiest rig in the world. Back down through the loop, and that's it basically. You can kind of see the little, so both bits of braid are going the same way now. They both look like they're coming up through the loop, although one's going up and one's going down. And then it's a matter of just pulling that tight. So keep hold of your braid, keep hold of the fluoro, just wet it a little bit. Now just grab hold of the hook and the fluoro and just tease them together. Again, just make sure that's wet. Just tease them together. Even just pull the braid, just tease the braid down so it's nice and together. Keep hold of your hook, keep hold of the long bit of braid, not the overflow of it, not that bit there that's sticking up. This long bit, which is part of your main rig, just pull that down tight. Just give it a nice pull either way, and then it's all nicely connected. So it looks all a bit messy. Obviously you've got to trim off the edges and that. You can see there's a nice little bit of supple braid there with the hook on and the bait, which goes straight onto your fluoro. Now I know that was a lot of fingers and thumbs, and it is quite fiddly, but I can tell you once you do it a few times, it's a real easy rig. So don't give up on it. Give it a few tries, and obviously if you have any questions to it, ask in the group or send me a message. Try and help you out as best as possible, and I'm just hoping this video gives you some kind of idea. So what I like to do now with this rig, what I'm going to try down here, although I'm catching on a certain length anyway, I'm going to make this quite a short rig. So obviously I've got loads of fluoro left over here, but again that's just to make sure that I'd rather be too long and lose a little bit than being too short and having to redo it. So what I'm going to do is just make a loop now in the end of the fluoro for how long I want my rig. Oh. Again, just a simple knot. Always wet all my knots. Quite a big loop. So there you got kind of a small version. All needs trimming up, so I'll do that now quickly. Well, before I do that, what I'm going to do, I'm sure some of you have got rig pullers. I haven't, but I've got the Easy Lap sharpener. No need to sharpen this hook, it is very sharp anyway. Now because the loop that I put on that will connect to my quick link is quite big, the good thing about this as well as an extra tool, it's got a nice round body to it, and I like to stick the loop for my rig over that, and then using a very long pair of disgorgers, scissors, whatever, I like to just put that on the bend of the hook, keep my fingers on the hook as well, one round there, and just tighten them all down, tease it all down. Don't yank and yank and yank, because you will pull it apart, but a carp's not going to do that. So just tease it, give it a little, you know, bit of pressure on there, just so you feel comfortable that if a carp's pulling on that, you know, it's not going to break it. Just tighten all them knots down. I'm quite happy with that. But the good thing about obviously using that as well, when you do it, the loop will be beautiful. Now I'll trim up all the excess bits. So loops all nice and sorted. Now trimming the bits that you've done the joining knot for. Don't be scared or worried about trimming these nice and close, because this knot will not come undone. I've not had one come undone yet. If you've done it correctly, you'll be fine. So I trim this quite close to the knot. The fluoros, maybe I see there's a small tag end. If it'll focus it, probably not. Tiny bit of tag end now. And same for the braids. I like to get that fairly close without cutting anything else. Hooking my finger. Oh, I'll blob that down in a minute. Not the neatest I've done here. I can't have that. I'm going to have that. So yeah, that's kind of your finished version. I've not cut the braid too well, but I will sort that with a lighter. You do not have to blob these bits or the fluoro that side. That knot, once you've done it, is done. It's just that I've cut that badly. The bit on the loop, I tend to just give it a little flame with a lighter, and it's good as gold. Blob back a little bit on the loop. Be careful with this. Put your fingers in the way so you don't catch the other bit of fluoro, the main part. And that's my Combi Rig. Nice and supple by the hook, solid fluoro boom, but also in a clear water situation where it's really clear, or you're fishing close in or whatever, seeing that fluoro for the fish is obviously a lot harder. It blends in with anything, obviously depending what you're using, and there's plenty of options there to use what you like. But that is pretty much my my Combi Rig. I learned that off, who was it? I think it was Sean Harrison I watched do this. Pretty much similar, maybe slightly different. But I've had lots of fish, including in France, on these rigs. It takes a little bit of confidence because you worry about this knot and how it sits together, but once you're pulling it together, like I say, you realise just how strong that knot is. But yeah, and obviously I like to steam the fluoro, get the kettle going, just run that over the steam, hold it fairly tight, and that will sit absolutely solid, but you know, it will be straight as a die as well, so you know when it falls it's always pushing away, and it's perfect. So again, I hope it gives you some idea on how I do it. Obviously what I use, again, use a bottom bait if you want to, don't have to have no split shot on there, maybe have the hair slightly closer to the hook, whatever suits your style. But that is what I tend to do and have been doing for quite a while. Like I say, I'll be adding a little split shot to that, and that works for me. But again, use the components you want to use, but that will catch fish.